With a single gunshot, the focus turns to New Mexico.
A Bonanza Creek Ranch which had 2 people accidentally shot on a movie set by a prop gun.
Questions emerging about safety.
To see a live bullet in play, and for anybody working in this business, that's so far out of the realm of what's possible even.
Who is responsible?
David Halls, Alec Baldwin, Hannah Gutierrez-Reed.
And will anyone be held accountable?
There's a lot that can happen between now and a trial.
Good evening, I'm Doug Fernandez.
And I'm Shelley Ribando. Thank you for joining us for this Target 7 investigative special, Rusted.
The Santa Fe County District Attorney is charging 3 people in connection with the October 2021 shooting death of cinematographer Halyna Hutchins.
The FBI says actor Alec Baldwin pulled the trigger. He and set armorer Hannah Gutierrez-Reed have been charged with involuntary manslaughter. And if convicted, they could serve as much as 6.5 years in prison.
Assistant Director David Halls, who also handled the gun that day, reached a plea deal and will do 6 months probation for a petty misdemeanor.
Since day one, Target 7 has closely followed the investigation. Our team combed through hundreds of pages of documents, analyzed lapel video, and interviewed experts.
What they found digging into that day in October could affect whether anyone is held accountable.
Some of which you'll see tonight has never been aired. Here is Target 7's John Cardinelli.
October 21st, 2021. It was a nice fall day in Santa Fe County. 60 degrees and clear skies. Crews were arriving to Bonanza Creek Ranch.
They look like the old western towns back in the 1800s. And this is what this is a pioneer town, 1800s.
Before her death, Imogene Hughes owned the ranch.
This really is where the filming started.
Big-time westerns were made at Bonanza Creek. Young Guns, Silverado, and Lonesome Dove. The movie Rust, starring Alec Baldwin, was going to join that list.
Everybody likes this town.
The film is set in 1880s Kansas. It's about a 13-year-old boy who goes on the run with his grandfather, a man sentenced to hang for accidentally killing a local rancher. It was the 16th day of filming here at Bonanza Creek Ranch, but something was wrong. Several crew members didn't show up because they felt the set wasn't safe.
The gun safety, a lack of rehearsals, a lack of, preparing the crew for what we were doing that day.
Others disagreed.
But we had already done quite a bit of work, and I never felt unsafe. Literally, we had already shot and killed 5, 6, 8 guys, I don't remember.
Not literally, of course, but with a single shot, all of that changed, and someone did actually die.
Santa Fe Fire and EMS, what's the location of emergency?
It was shortly before 2 p.m. this call came into 911.
A Bonanza Creek Ranch which had 2 people accidentally shot on a movie set by a prop gun. We need help immediately. Bonanza Creek Ranch, come on.
Sheriff's deputies, paramedics, and firefighters rushing to the scene.
You got your trauma kit?
Yeah, I'm trying to get it out.
They get there to find out actor Alec Baldwin was holding this gun that fired a bullet hitting cinematographer Halyna Hutchins and director Joel Sousa. The scene was chaotic.
We're gonna get you up.
Paramedics trying to help the injured.
She came in here, it went across her chest. And it came out the back and it went into the...
Police trying to figure out what happened.
Alec Baldwin, the actor, is the one who pulled the trigger. Do you want me to have him sit tight or?
Yeah, you're gonna have to sit tight.
Crew members panicking.
Just relax.
I'm so scared.
You're all right. Just relax.
So here's the box that I got them out of.
Okay.
Investigators trying to get to the truth.
So now, let me ask you, did you see the rounds that were in the gun?
No.
Hutchins' wounds so severe, crews had to life flight her to Albuquerque as she fought for her life. Then reality sinks in.
I do have some very unfortunate news to tell you.
What?
She didn't make it. Yeah.
This is Halyna Hutchins. She was born in Ukraine and came to the United States to pursue a career in film. She was the mother of a 9-year-old boy, a wife, and an up-and-coming cinematographer with a lot of respect. Her death here at Bonanza Creek Ranch that day spiraled into a 15-month-long investigation our Target 7 team stayed on top of. It took that long for the Santa Fe County District Attorney, Mary Carmack Altwies, to decide who should be charged.
We determined that there were 3 people that were the most culpable. And those are the 3 that either touched the gun that day or had a duty to have touched or checked the gun that day.
The DA says these 3 people are responsible. Actor Alec Baldwin, one of the producers of the movie who also had the lead role. police say he fired the gun.
I was the one holding the gun, yeah.
Assistant Director David Halls.
It's not here. There's one there and there's one there. That's none of them.
That's not the gun.
Court documents say he handed the gun to Baldwin and announced it was safe. He is the one who reached a plea agreement. And Armor Hannah Gutierrez Reed, a 25-year-old who just started in the film business. She was responsible for the guns on set and loaded this Colt 45 before giving it to Halls.
How do I know this is a gun?
That's the gun.
Okay.
What was your reaction when you first learned about what happened at Bonanza Creek Ranch?
You know, I think like everybody else, you're stunned that on a movie set that there are live bullets being used, and how can that happen? How can somebody, cinematographer, get shot on a movie set in New Mexico? And
John Day is a former prosecutor and is KOAT's legal expert. He says that while it may seem like an open and shut case, nothing is guaranteed.
It's not a whodunit. We know who pulled the trigger. We know who was holding the gun. We know who the players were. But at the end of the day, we'll see what happens. Does she get convictions? Are there acquittals?
Day says it's likely the case will go before a jury here at the Santa Fe County District Courthouse. But getting convictions on Baldwin and Gutierrez Reed may prove to be difficult. During our investigation, we found flaws in how witnesses were separated, contradictions on whether the gun could fire on its own, and questions about how safe the set was in the first place.
That everyone is equal under the law. And if you're going to hold an inherently dangerous weapon and then pull the trigger while pointing it at someone, you're going to be held accountable for that.
In the days and weeks following that tragic day, so much more would come to light.
Including the way investigators handled evidence that could impact the case. And was Alec Baldwin given special treatment?
And why did Baldwin believe he wouldn't be charged?
If somebody introduced a live round onto that set, that person should be charged. And that investigation should have been done.
You may have Alec Baldwin take a seat in the back of my unit, or?
No, we know where he's at. We know who he is.
Yeah.
You know, hindsight being 20/20, I can see that there were, in fact, some mistakes made.
Were mistakes made?
When deputies were called to respond to the shooting on the set of the movie Rust, they found 2 people with gunshot wounds.
There were nearly 200 possible witnesses, thousands of pieces of evidence, and a possible crime scene they were responsible for.
At the time, they had no idea if a crime was committed and if some of the people they were talking to could end up being charged.
Everything they did was recorded on cameras they were wearing, and it is likely to be critiqued if the case goes to trial.
Once again, here's Target 7's John Cardinelli.
You know, you could go 10 law enforcement careers easily without ever being in a situation where you're on the scene and somebody is deceased and the word prop gun is being thrown around.
Retired police commander Paul Zeich has investigated dozens of homicides. He looked at hours of on-body camera footage released by the Santa Fe County Sheriff's Office months after the death of Helena Hutchins.
So I can see that the officer is really trying to get his mind around, you know, what do I have here?
At first, deputies were told they were responding to an accidental shooting that involved a prop gun. And one of the things deputies needed to do immediately, separate everyone.
Try to keep him away from everybody.
Okay, have him
talk to anybody.
Okay, I can just have him sit. I can sit with him in my unit.
That's fine.
Okay.
That's a lieutenant telling a deputy to keep actor Alec Baldwin away from people.
You got to separate people, and you got to take control of the scene. That's the reality.
But that didn't happen right away.
I'm happy to stay right here and do everything I need to do.
Well, my lieutenant just wants you to stay away from everybody and not to talk to nobody. So I was
wait right here.
We can wait right here and have everybody step back, or we can wait in the back of my patrol unit. But I prefer to not put you there. Okay.
The real power on the scene, you know, is this very popular actor.
Were mistakes made?
I won't speak to specifics, but I'll say this: there's no perfect response and no perfect crime scene.
Santa Fe County Sheriff Adon Mendoza said his department could have done a better job with the investigation.
If you don't go back and look at how you can do things better, then we're not doing the best job that we can.
For the next 26 minutes, Baldwin is seen interacting with 11 different people until the deputy says this.
Alrighty, guys, if I can have you guys stop talking about the incident until everybody's been interviewed separately, okay?
At one point, Baldwin was talking to the assistant director, David Halls. Remember him? He's the one who reached a plea agreement. He pled to a petty misdemeanor and got probation. He makes a gesture to Baldwin about how ammunition is checked.
When you hear enough people say things a different way, it's very easy for you to then begin to have your reality be what others are saying.
So Baldwin should have been separated, ideally.
Ideally, he should have been separated from anybody, and we want the statement and what he's recalling of the incident to be as authentic and genuine as possible. Is that a policy violation? No. Is it best practice? Yes. And is it something that we could have, that the deputy could have done better? Probably.
Is that going to affect this case at all?
I don't think so. This was an unintentional shooting. It was criminal, but it was still unintentional. So there was no reason for people to lie, to get together, to collude. I don't think that happened, and I don't think it affects the investigation whatsoever.
I think the quality of the investigation is going to be an issue in this case.
Jason Bowles represents armorer Hannah Gutierrez-Reed.
We are going to bring up, as this goes on, why that is significant and why it's important and why certain things matter. It's Police 101 that after a crime occurs, you separate all the potential suspects and witnesses so that they're not allowed to communicate. Our client was immediately separated, taken into the back of a patrol unit, and she was treated differently than Mr. Baldwin.
How the investigation was handled is one of many issues likely to come up if the case goes to trial. What Baldwin said that day has varied, and whether a gun like this can fire on its own has been debated. Hours after the shooting, he said this when questioned by investigators.
I mean, I don't even want to tell you your job, but I'm so sick about this, so sickened by this, that a bullet passed through this girl's body. She's in critical condition in a hospital right now, and I fired the gun.
But when he sat down with ABC's George Stephanopoulos, he had this to say.
It wasn't in the script for the trigger to be pulled.
Well, the trigger wasn't pulled. I didn't pull the trigger.
You never want to point at anybody. You want to clear it, check the chambers on it, therefore it's empty, it's safe.
When the shooting occurred, we wanted to know everything about the F. Lee Pietta Colt 45, the gun used by Baldwin.
It was a big advancement over the past firearms, which are percussion firearms.
Robert Tighe specializes in antique guns. He works at Ron Peterson's gun shop, and we paid him a visit just days after the shooting. He said accidents are possible with the gun Baldwin had in his hand.
This is a single action, and you can very easily accidentally pull the hammer back, like if you're riding through brush, and it would end up, if it didn't catch half cock, it would fire.
But this report from the FBI says Baldwin had to have pulled the trigger. Investigators also collected video and photos like this from the scene of prior rehearsals that day that show Baldwin's finger on the trigger. And that's why the district attorney is charging him. Alec Baldwin has said he did not pull the trigger. Do we believe that?
No, that's not true. The FBI report showed us that gun would not have gone off without the trigger being pulled.
So Alec Baldwin did pull the trigger?
Correct, he did.
Do we know how a live round got into the gun that day?
We know how it got into the gun. We don't know how it got onto the set. The way it got into the gun was that Hannah Gutierrez-Reed loaded it into the gun. 6 live rounds were found at the Rust movie set, counting the one that was fired. There was also one found in the gun belt Baldwin was wearing, and police tried to figure out how they got there. Their investigation led them to PDQ Arm & Prop in Albuquerque. This is where some of the ammunition for the movie was purchased.
I found a live round in my van, which was weird, and I want to give it to you.
That was Seth Kenny, owner of PDQ Arm & Prop, being questioned by investigators. At the time, they believed live ammunition could have come from his prop shop right here in Albuquerque. Shortly after, they searched the shop here, and they found live ammunition. Did any live rounds found on the set that day come from PDQ Arm & Prop?
We cannot say that they did.
Do we know where those live rounds potentially came from?
We have theories, but we do not know.
Everyone else has their own theories, too. In interviews with national media, Baldwin has pointed fingers at Kenny.
Did Seth Kenny provide her with prop ammunition where he commingled live rounds with blank rounds?
When questioned by police, Kenny has blamed Gutierrez-Reed.
She wanted to shoot live ammo out of the guns, the TV movie guns, but I said no effing way, obviously.
Gutierrez-Reed's attorney has said that's not true. Do you still believe that sabotage was a possibility in this case?
We do believe it could be a possibility. We believe since day one has been, how did those live rounds get onto set? Everybody in America, it seems like, is asking that question. The sheriff and the DA essentially gave up on investigating that question.
Is sabotage a possibility?
No. It never was. It was something that was floated, I believe, by a defense attorney. There has been absolutely no evidence that any sabotage occurred whatsoever.
Have you been able to determine where those live rounds may have come from?
We have a very good idea.
Bowles claims that investigators did not try to lift fingerprints from the rounds. Investigators told Target 7 it would be hard to pull fingerprints from the rounds. Will we ever know where those live rounds came from?
I don't think so.
Alec Baldwin said he didn't think he'd be charged, but why?
Was he talking to someone on the inside of the investigation?
And will it have an effect on the case?
I've been told by people who are in the know in terms of even inside the state that it's highly unlikely I would be charged with anything criminally.
Why would Alec Baldwin be so confident that he wouldn't be charged in this case?
It certainly didn't come from my office because we had no leaks.
Alec Baldwin was basically a defense attorney's nightmare.
Alec Baldwin was not camera shy when it came to telling his story about the shooting on the set of the Rust movie.
He claimed he didn't pull the trigger and said early on he wasn't going to be charged.
Baldwin claims someone in the know told him he was going to be okay, and Target 7 may have discovered who that someone is.
So will that hurt the DA's case? Here's John Cardinelli.
Following the Rust shooting, Alec Baldwin had a lot to say about how the gun went off.
I never once said, never, that the gun went off in my hand automatically. I always said I pulled the hammer back.
How the shooting affected him.
And she was great at her job, and she died. And she died. And that hurts me every day. You know, every day of my life I think about that. It's horrible.
And how he was not going to be charged.
That private investigator, as you probably know, did not have a difficult time accessing the staff of the sheriff's department. And that person told us, quote unquote, we've known in the department since January that Alec would not be charged with a crime.
Target 7 has learned that during the investigation, this sheriff's detective you see here interviewing Baldwin had been communicating with the actor. We obtained copies of the text messages between the two. He asks her, I've been getting some calls warning me to get criminal counsel. I said I haven't been charged with anything. Do you think there's even a possibility that I will be? I thought that wasn't possible. The detective responds, I have a meeting with the DA tomorrow afternoon, and I can give you a call once we discuss the totality of everything. I don't necessarily see anything past a civil level, but I'll get a better feel tomorrow. About 2 weeks after those texts, Baldwin says this to George Stephanopoulos.
I've been told by people who are in the know in terms of even inside the state that it's highly unlikely I would be charged with anything criminally.
The DA thinks this was planned by the investigator.
And I believe that she was using a tactic to keep Baldwin talking with her, to keep him freely giving her information. And so, again, I have no concerns with her investigation.
Well, it depends. From an investigatory standpoint, it's going to determine whether or not they become the focus of your investigation.
Remember retired police commander Paul Zeich? He analyzed the text messages the investigator sent.
Now, if you're dealing with a true witness, somebody who you have no intention of charging, somebody who you don't believe that has any culpability in the investigation, that's fine.
Do you think those text messages are maybe why Baldwin sort of assumed that he wouldn't be charged?
I can't speculate as to that.
Baldwin should have kept his mouth shut and waited for his defense team to get all the records, all the reports, all the information.
But getting information from Baldwin was not easy. According to investigators, it took more than 3 weeks to obtain his phone records. Is that an unusual amount of time?
The fact that it took so long, I think, raises a question in people's minds about how cooperative were you and why did it take so long? You know, if you're the prosecutor, you say to a jury, look, you know, is this someone who has something to hide?
It may also have something to do with procedure. For example, the sheriff's detective had been pressing Baldwin to get a hold of his phone for their investigation. In the texts Target 7 obtained, Baldwin tells the detective, "I'm told by my lawyer that the phone is available to be scanned when you state in a warrant exactly what you want in my phone. You can have every correspondence I have ever had with anyone related to the film." The detective responds to Baldwin saying, "I have no correspondence from your phone. It's something that's being requested. If I need to go the warrant route, I will, no problem, but it's going to take time." Did you get all of the text messages from Alec Baldwin?
We got everything that the Suffolk County Sheriff's Office pulled from his phone. I do not think that that included every text message or phone call or phone log from that time period. And we are still investigating that angle.
Back in November, the full Rust investigation from the Santa Fe County Sheriff's Office was released. In that investigation, it was revealed Baldwin sent a message to his assistant saying, "I have to delete my archive."
How will that be used against him, do you think, in court?
That's a very curious development, because what you have is that statement. And of course, his team has said, well, he was referring to his Twitter archive. But you've got that statement made in conjunction with the DA from Santa Fe saying we don't think we have all of his texts. So that raises the question of, was he referring to tampering with evidence? Were there things he didn't want to have seen by law enforcement? Were there things that were incriminating?
Were there any key pieces of evidence that led to this outcome?
I wouldn't say there were key pieces of evidence. It was more a totality of the circumstances. The lack of safety on set, the notification from the camera crew that there was a lack of safety on set, the misfires that had happened earlier in the weeks.
In determining what charges to file, the DA talked to witnesses and expert armorers. They all said that during the rehearsal, it did not require for a gun to be fired, and that a plastic or replica gun should have been used.
Why was Hannah Gutierrez-Reed instructed then to load a gun for that rehearsal scene?
That would be a great question to ask Mr. Halls when he has to testify in this case.
Halls' attorney, Lisa Tarraco, has said the assistant director wasn't the one in charge of deciding what to use at rehearsal.
What was Dave Halls responsible for, and was he responsible for safety at the set?
It has always been our position that he is not responsible for safety. He's a safety coordinator, and he has the responsibility of informing people about safety issues.
Court records show that before Hutchins was shot, Gutierrez-Reed loaded the gun, locked it into a safe, and took a lunch break with the rest of the crew. When she returned, she was told to give it to Halls, and he was supposed to announce that the gun was safe.
He did not hand Baldwin the gun, but I don't think it matters. You know, it's been a big point of contention, and it's frustrating because I feel like we're yelling at the top of our lungs. He didn't hand him the gun.
The DA's office also determined that Baldwin had limited training to do this cross-draw maneuver he was rehearsing. Court documents say he was supposed to get 1 hour of training, and Gutierrez-Reed told investigators they did 30 minutes of training because he was distracted on his cell phone talking to his family. According to text messages and emails obtained by Target 7, Gutierrez-Reed had voiced concerns to her superiors taking time away from her to watch the guns.
They had told her, you know, you're focusing too much on your armor duties.
She said in an email 1 week before the tragedy, "I want to do a good job and make a good impression, but ultimately there are working guns on set every day, and those are ultimately going to be priority, because when they are not, that's when dangerous mistakes can happen."
Did Alec Baldwin have a duty to check the prop gun that day?
I believe that he did. If you are going to hold a gun, point it at someone, and pull the trigger, you need to know what is in that gun. And an actor shouldn't be treated differently from a non-actor just because they're an actor. That's the whole point of our criminal justice system, is that everyone is equal under the law.
The investigation into the Rust shooting also found that Baldwin failed to do 2 safety checks that day. Gutierrez-Reed should have been present during the rehearsal, and she wasn't. And other than being the daughter of well-known armorer Thel Reed, she was not qualified and did not have proper certifications.
What I care about is that Halyna Hutchins got killed by someone's hand because they were being unsafe with a gun. That's what I care about, and that's why I'm prosecuting this case.
How Mary Carmack Altwies is prosecuting the case has been under fire since she filed charges. The DA hired special prosecutor Andrea Reeb, who was elected to the state legislature just months before charges were filed.
Why was she appointed?
I only have 8 attorneys that have the experience and the skill level to take homicides. So I elected to bring someone else in that had 25 years of prosecutorial experience to work with me.
All 3 defense attorneys have said it's improper for Reeb to be a special prosecutor and legislator.
It's clearly a violation of the separation of powers clause in the New Mexico Constitution and the United States Constitution.
Halls' attorney Lisa Tarraco had donated money to Reeb's campaign just weeks after she was named special prosecutor. Remember, Halls pled to a petty misdemeanor while Baldwin and Gutierrez Reed were charged with felonies.
David Halls was given essentially a slap on the hand.
Legal experts think I got the screaming deal of the century. I don't think he should have been charged.
Why did you donate to Andrea Reeb's campaign?
I fully expected that she was going to resign as special prosecutor come November when she won the election.
No matter who is found to be responsible, the Rush shooting will forever change the landscape of film in New Mexico, if not the entire world. Questions have been raised about whether real guns should be used on set, if actors need more training with guns, and whether there needs to be more laws. One thing we learned in our investigation was that Halyna Hutchins wasn't going to be behind the camera that day. Things changed when cameramen didn't show up because they were worried about safety.
If it is a real working gun, you assume that it's loaded and you treat it like that. A woman died because this gun wasn't treated like the deadly weapon that it is.
From the outside, not much has changed at Bonanza Creek Ranch. On the inside, it has. This used to be a place that welcomed tourists to give them a glimpse of life in the Old West. It's now closed to visitors. We can only see it on film through the eyes of cinematographers like Halyna Hutchins, who have the ability to take us back in time to worlds we can only see on the big screen. For those who work in New Mexico's criminal justice system, they hope this tragedy will serve as a lesson to all of Hollywood.
The district attorney tells us she expects a preliminary hearing to be held by May.
That's when Baldwin and Gutierrez Reed will return to New Mexico to face a judge who will determine if there is enough evidence to go to trial.
Halyna Hutchins' family reached an out-of-court settlement with Baldwin. Part of that settlement is that the continued filming of Rust would conclude outside of the state.
From all of us here at KOAT, good night.